Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of Teed Up. I'm David.
I'm Justin.
As always, we appreciate you tuning in. I hope everyone's doing well. We have a very special guest today. Joining us is a 10-year NBA veteran, played 4 years at UCLA, Pasadena, California's finest, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Hollins. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, what's going on, brothers, man? We'll laugh about our little technical difficulties earlier, man. It took a while to get on via Zoom, man. So,
Yeah.
Zoom. Shout out Zoom and I don't know. I don't know if we blame Zoom or just Wi-Fi right now.
Yeah.
Both, maybe?
Oh, yeah, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. So how's the new normal of quarantine been treating you?
You know, I'm normally a homebody. I don't mind being at home, but I think the toughest part that's hitting me is not being able to work out. And then, my kids are going like crazy just sitting in the house and, not being able to do stuff and, go to school, run off and burn out energy. So I try to let them work out at the house or go outside and do stuff. But for them, it's just it's activity. They just feel so caged up.
Definitely. Yeah.
I feel that way too.
Yeah, I got younger siblings too, and it's rough, on them especially. I think the worst part about it too is there's no sports, especially no basketball. I'm kind of going crazy with that.
Yeah, no hoop. Normally, man, imagine if you had a game to watch right now, you would be gold, cool, throw the game on, that would be the thing to do, as we speak, but with no basketball, it's taxing to all of us.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
if we had games, I would totally be fine with being in the house all the time. So.
Yeah, this little house party wouldn't be bad at all, man. Or shoot, right now, think about it. We'd be in the playoffs right now, so we'd be seeing, LeBron and Kawhi would have faced off. Giannis would have been going through the East Coast. I mean, I want to say there are really cool storylines in the NBA, and I know we'll get to this that we just haven't seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
I was thinking, as I was kind of going through the script and kind of going through my notes, going through your career, you played during the 2011 lockout. And I assume that's kind of what these guys are going through, maybe a little bit more drastic, I guess. But, what was it like, playing in a lockout?
For me, that was the first time I realized that there was going to be life after basketball, because at the time where I'd be normally playing basketball, I was at home. And granted, I could go to a gym and work out, and that's really fun during the summertime. But you forget that the reason that you work out during the summertime is so that you can play during the season. And when there was no season, I just remember just feeling how bad it was. So all that stuff just really started to come and catch up. But this has a similar feel, but even worse, because you're stuck at home. And I think for a lot of the guys, their social lives have been impacted because now it's well, you don't have to, basketball gives you a lot of excuses, well, go take out the trash. Nah, I got a game. I could be taking out the trash. I have a basketball game to play.
Yeah.
So now you have to do, little simple day-to-day activities where I guess, the NBA or sports would give you an excuse, if that makes sense. Well,
right.
You're home, you can cook and clean and do normal people stuff too.
Oh man. Well, you've been keeping busy. You have a podcast. If you want to plug your podcast a little bit, feel free.
Absolutely, man. The 7 Footers Opinionated podcast, and I appreciate you guys for looking out for us and watching the content. And
Absolutely.
What me and Brendan do is daily we'll just go on Instagram Live and talk about the day-to-day things that happen, just so we can give the fans and listeners something to have. And then after that, what we do is we go and we'll pull in guests onto the podcast, and I'll drop it. We just did Mike Conley right now, and Mike Conley was super cool because he was so down to earth. Obviously, he's going to Orlando as a current NBA player, but I thought just having him in the mix, that was a big step for the podcast. We had Gary Payton, Sean Marion, a number of other really cool guests, but I thought getting Mike on while he's in his career, a guy going to Orlando to compete for a championship, I thought that was, probably one of our biggest guests so far. And if you hadn't seen it, Jamal Crawford he went in on the podcast. So he was really cool. So there's there's a lot to go out and watch if you have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did watch the Jamal Crawford one. It was pretty deep.
right?
It was
It was
good. It was very
And like,
good.
and
I
I
really
played
liked
with
it.
Jamal, so I didn't even know some of that stuff either. So like, I thought that was like just super cool.
Hmm.
wow.
Yeah, definitely. So, you played with some pretty incredible guys throughout your career. Who would you say are some of your more memorable teammates here?
Man, I was blessed, man. I'll try to start at the top. Like Kevin Garnett, he rejuvenated my basketball career. I mean, I was a guy who's in my mind on the way of like being out of the league. And Kevin Garnett showed me that I could play the game the way I started playing, like from a place of passion, from because of what I love. And those of you who may not like know what it's like to be in the NBA, like there's a lot of you can get depressed in the NBA, or you can be told you're just a number of business. So, or it's just a business, just a business. And
Hmm.
I was losing sight of that. And when I got with KG and Paul Pierce and those guys, they played because they just love basketball, just because like I want to be better than you, or I'm trash talking, or I want to win the game because I have personal pride. And for me, when that came back, like that changed my career. And I like to say like definitely put years on my career from then on. And I'll thank him for that. Dirk Nowitzki, arguably the greatest shooter I've ever played with. Like Dirk was just he was crazy. And what blew me away with him is his humility. Like Dirk was so humble in every single thing that he did. Like that's what really stuck out to me. I'm like, man, this guy is whatever one of the top scorers in the NBA, one of the greatest shooters. And I hear how humble he talks about a guy on a scouting report. Like, man, I'm worried about guarding this guy or guarding this guy. Like, so Dirk Nowitzki stands out. Jason Kidd, amazing guy. They used to take us out to lunch and dinners on the road. Like, and I don't mean just like the players, like the ball boys, the equipment man. Like everybody got to go and partake in a lot of these exercises and dinners. And I thought, like to me, that's the true superstar because you're taking care of everybody. It's not just the main players. Like you're hanging out with everybody on the team.
Yeah, and like we were talking about that on our last episode. There are some guys in the NBA, in my opinion, that just kind of play because it's a job and they're good at it. But there's some guys, like KG and Dirk, that just absolutely love the game and play like every game like it's their last.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's what like really, with those guys what sticks out. And like KG, is funny you say that, but like he played every game like it was his last. And like for real, like I've always in my career prided myself like, hey, like I play hard. Every game I play hard. Every game
Hmm.
I give it my all. And when I think of a guy like KG, he taught me how to play even harder because I'm like, man, this guy in his 17th year of basketball is like diving on the floor, getting loose balls, doing all these things. So I'm like, man, if he's out here doing this stuff, what's my excuse of why I can't be doing it? So Kevin Garnett, like he really stood out to me with everything that he did. But it helped in my mind, put longevity in my career just because that his mindset rubbed off. It was so contagious.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you know, so we wanted to get into a couple of the topics going on in the league. We have a start bench cut, and we were going to talk a little bit about the our hometown Sixers. So recently, Kevin Durant ruled himself out for the remainder of the season, so he will not. I don't know if he's going to travel to Orlando or not. The Nets are going to Orlando, correct? Correct me if I'm
Yep,
wrong.
yep. They're in the
Yeah,
mix.
they are.
So yeah, so Kevin Durant is not playing for the rest of the season. And Ryan, I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. With Brooklyn, what's the situation with that?
I thought it's a smart thing from Kevin Durant. Like, selfishly for all of us, we'd love to see him play and,
Mm.
going out and getting buckets. But, if you're Kevin Durant, you're thinking about it from this perspective. Last year, I went out and risked it all on an NBA championship. So, granted, that may have been the right move, in time. But if you think about it, like he risked it, he risked his career, and he's looking and telling all of us, like, all right, I'm not that silly, guys. Like, I love the Nets. I'm committed to a championship, but it's not a smart move for me to be out, risking my career trying to, come back and salvage, a couple of games for my team. So I think it's a smart move. If you look at the Brooklyn Nets, obviously, even with Kyrie banged up, this isn't a team that's on the cusp of winning a championship. Like, if you look at that Golden State squad, you're like, nah, like they had a chance to win. And if he was healthy, and just could play at 60%, I believe
Mhm.
that they beat Toronto. But ultimately, he's making the right choice, and I think he's definitely learned from his mistakes last year. And he's looking at last year and just saying like, "Nah, guys, as much as I want to, I'm not going to come out and play."
Absolutely.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think they could really have a shot at fully contending this year. I don't think they're going to win the championship, especially with they wouldn't have the chemistry, I think, in my opinion, to win because they haven't played enough games. Like, I don't think there's if he
Yep.
did come back and he only had 8 games, like I just don't think they'd be able to get past like the Milwaukee Bucks. And then even if they did make a finals run, I don't think they'd beat the Lakers or Clippers this year at
But
least.
you know, it's interesting. Like, obviously, they'd be missing chemistry, but I think there's an element. We're going to see Orlando, and every team is going to have to restart their chemistry and the stuff they're doing. So, I'm not saying it would have been the Nets. I agree, it's a smart choice to sit out, but I think every team, chemistry-wise, is going to be missing something. And you know, we may, because of that, get a surprise champion in this equation. So, and it could just be the team that's hottest comes out and wins.
Hmm.
Mhm.
No, yeah, that's true. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before, so you don't really know what's going to happen.
No, and the biggest risk, man, is injuries. These guys come
Mhm.
out and get injured, or they're not, prepared to play. This could be a really, really murky waters for some of these stars. So if you're a team like the Lakers or the Clippers, you have everything to lose because
Mhm.
you have been sitting out, and now you haven't been playing, and now you're going to be expected to come and play basketball at a high level. So that's incredibly tough to do.
Mhm.
Definitely.
I saw like guys like Jason Tatum. They're living in an apartment. He doesn't necessarily have a basketball hoop that he can be playing on this whole time. Like it's
Nope.
harder for a guy like him to be staying fit and stuff right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that all those little factors come into play in a situation like this. And if you're a guy that lives in a little more of a rural town, you could have a full court basket. On the pod we talk about it. We have Mike Conley on right now, and that'll be dropping pretty soon. But Mike Conley's blessed to have a situation where he has the court at his house. Like he has the court at his house, and he actually won the skills challenge. But part of him winning the skills challenge was he has a full court basketball, in his
Yeah,
backyard. So like, how can you fight with that?
Right.
exactly. You're right.
And it's especially, for guys that like for example, I know like Matisse Thybulle of the Sixers, for example, plays in he lives in an apartment, so he doesn't have a 24/7 basketball court.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
You can't even like go somewhere where you could play.
mhm.
That's what really gets tough.
Another thing too, like even if you wanted to go to like a park or something like or court like outside, they took the nets down. Like most cities took down
Yeah,
the nets, so you can't even
Hmm.
even play
You can't
basketball or
use
even
that.
like get some shots up. So,
yeah. I have a kid that I train, and he was trying to go park to park for a while. Then like, yeah, they took down the nets, they covered the baskets, they did a lot of stuff. People were coming out like calling the cops on you, like,
Hmm.
all right, bro, he's out there by himself, like, like what is gonna happen?
No,
so how'd
But
you,
yeah.
people were taking it, obviously taking it serious. I get it, but one person going out. But even more to your point, as an NBA player, like a young NBA player who stays in an apartment, which I did. Every time I traveled, I never stayed anywhere. I had an apartment. You don't. Where are you gonna play? That's the biggest problem.
Mhm.
exactly?
Definitely.
What do you think about this? Like the new format, this 8 games, and then having the play-in tournament.
Man, I think that's an excellent job from Commissioner Silver, because we're going to see those situations pop up again and again, and I can't think of just how important it is. And excuse me, I'm not going to say they'll pop up again and again, but I think they're prepared for whatever happened.
Mhm.
And the NBA is the best league in my mind at looking at a scenario and saying, how can we take lemons and make lemonade? So they never sat back and worried. They just said, hey, what's realistic for the teams and what's fair? And you saw Damian Lillard spoke out and he said he wouldn't go out and play. And if he didn't have a chance to compete, and you think about a star like Zion Williamson, who everybody wants to see, compete and play for a championship. So I thought that it was a real fair move from the NBA. And from a fan's perspective, everybody complains about the competition level. But if I'm going there, all I can ask is for a chance to get into the playoffs after this time off, and I think it's worthwhile for the fans and for everybody. So, excellent job from the NBA.
And that's one of the things that I respect about the NBA is that they're always willing to change. They're always saying, what can we do? How can we make the league better? And, they're not very conservative with, the rules. They're changing rules a lot. For example, they switched to the 14-second shot clock this year or last year. So, I have a lot of respect for the NBA for how much they're willing to change and willing to, grow as a league.
Yeah, that's huge. And if you're a fan, like you want to see the best product on the floor, and like like tell me, like any average NBA fan can answer, like you feel like the NBA is tailoring to you. And I just hate when fans complain about things that aren't realistic, like or like fans sometimes can be their biggest problem. Like everybody complained about the Golden State Warriors, and it's like, well, it was much TV. You never turned the game off when they were on TV. Now, obviously,
Not
it's
once.
That's
right.
true.
You want
Yeah.
to watch it, love them or hate them, you watch it. But when it got to the finals, that's the only part that sucked, because we knew he was going to win the NBA finals. Pretty much, or it was a landslide. It wasn't too competitive for those years. But other than that, the league really gives you everything that you want.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask, you brought up Golden State. After all the hype around the Last Dance documentary, I remember you saying that the Warriors would beat the 90s Bulls. Did this documentary change any of your opinions on that, or are you still confident in the Warriors?
It didn't. I still have full confidence in the Warriors, even more so because Michael Jordan, at the end of the day, he was a one-man band. And the triangle offense just made it so Michael, instead of just going one-on-one, he'd look at 2 or 3 reads and go to work. And you think about Golden State, all you saw was ball movement, cutting, equal opportunity offense. And I thought that from not just playing against them, but covering that NBA Finals really, really closely, in the fourth quarters, when guys normally just say, hey, give the ball to my best player, go one-on-one, you'll watch Golden State at their best. They would execute set screens, down screens, and move without the ball and get buckets the hard way. So when I look at the Golden State Warriors, there's no doubt in my mind that they would beat those Bulls teams. And it's not a knock to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen at all, but they didn't have the firepower. They didn't play with that type of pace. Now, if they reconstruct their roster, then they have, versatile guys that can shoot the ball from outside. That's a different ball game. But even beyond that, like there's not enough shooting on the Bulls to have competed. And let's say you throw Kerr in there. Kerr's a defensive liability. Kerr wasn't like a 3-and-D guy. And the value of a 3-and-D guy is that he can hold his own on the defensive end of the floor. And on the offensive floor, he doesn't hurt your spacing. Steve Kerr is not a 3-and-D guy. Ron Harper wasn't a great shooter. He had a slow release. So those guys would have been ineffective compared to what Golden State was putting on the floor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from with that. And
it's tough because it's different eras of basketball. Like the Bulls were more of they didn't have the shooters, because back then the 3-point shot wasn't as used as much as it is now. So like they were just built differently. So like I think they wouldn't be able to compete with the Warriors, in my opinion.
You won back then with having the best player in the game, putting defense and rebounding around them. And now you win with ball movement and scoring, essentially, and versatility defensively. Maybe not great defensively, but versatility. So that's a huge factor when I'm looking and comparing those two teams. And like I said, because of era, it's not a knock to the Bulls. They just couldn't keep up, and it's not a knock to Michael either. They just wouldn't be able to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like music to my ears because this guy stands Michael Jordan, and I don't know if, as you can see, I'm a LeBron fan, so I stand LeBron. So it's like,
Who's your GOAT? Do you think it's MJ or Jordan right now, or MJ or LeBron right now?
Oh, I'm LeBron.
Thank you.
I just look at how versatile LeBron is. I think LeBron hasn't had the dominance that Michael has in his career. We'd be fools to say that he has. But with the different number of teammates that he's had, the different organizations, different coaches, the way that he had to like learn it on his own, LeBron has done so much more with less than Michael. And I get that you might be able to argue that the first 7 years of Michael's career, he didn't have Phil Jackson. And when Phil got in, he turned things around. But LeBron James really did not miss opportunities once he learned how to win at a championship level. Phil Jackson turned Michael into an animal, and then he went out and won at a high level. And when I look at the competition, the firepower that LeBron James has to play against, I don't take it a knock that he only won 3 finals and 9 appearances. I look at it and say, man, he had to see Golden State once he grew up. And the Golden State Warriors, in my mind, are the greatest basketball team in NBA history. Michael Jordan never had to see the Golden State Warriors. He won three-peating against no Golden State Warriors. So that's the real big factor that stands out in my mind. And it's not that Michael's not good, but LeBron's making all five guys better. Michael's a killer. Michael's going to go out and get his numbers. And getting your numbers, as we saw in The Last Dance, does not always equate to wins. In that case, Kevin Durant right now would be the best player in the league because as far as a guy going one-on-one, KD's unguardable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would even argue that with, Kawhi and Giannis.
Yeah, facts.
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I would say Kawhi even more so at that level just because he's a three-level scorer. He can shoot three. He got the mid-range and he can get to the rim. And Giannis is really, a set shot three or getting to the rim and getting fouled for right now in his career.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to say, who would you say right now in the NBA most resembles MJ's game right now?
Right now, I would agree Kawhi.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Kendrick Perkins threw that out. Just the sense of you see the big hands. He plays out the mid-range. Kawhi's not flashy with his dribble. He kind of takes 1-2 dribble, and he goes to the hole, or he'll get to the middle of the paint and spin and fade away. He's not as smooth as Michael, but the simplicity of his game mirrors Michael Jordan. And obviously, Kawhi, look up to Michael growing up, so that didn't hurt either. But I see a lot of the similarities there.
Okay. That's what I thought the same thing. So I was just curious what your opinion was.
So every episode we do start bench cut. Ryan, are you familiar with start bench cut? Yeah. So we take 3 players, see who we'd start bench and cut. So today we decided to do Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers, Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, and James Harden of the Houston Rockets. So Ryan, since you're our guest, I want to know who would you start and who would you bench and who would you cut?
All right, let me throw this out, fellas. Is this is this who I'm taking today or for the future?
Today,
right now.
Dang, if I'm going today, I'm gonna start Luka. Oh gosh, this is.
What do you want to spy?
I'm gonna bench Harden and I'm gonna cut Dame, but it's hard for me to cut Dame because of what he did in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Harden is about to go off. But Harden has been laying eggs in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I can't justify cutting James Harden right now.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I could.
That's hard.
I could.
David is not a big James Harden fan.
Look, anybody that watches the show knows I'm not a James Harden guy. Me personally, I think he's a stat patter. I don't think he's not the player that's going to ever win a ring. Because me personally, I believe that he only cares about his personal stats. He only cares about getting his triple doubles and his 30 points a game. He doesn't really care about how his team does as much as other players.
I mean, I've seen him make the correct pass in the correct play.
Mm-hmm.
I know how hard it is what James does. And where he operates from, it's not really set up once he's going one-on-one to get a lot of assists.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron drives and gets into the lane, so it's easy for him to get assists. But Harden shoots a step-back three-pointer, which is really it's the worst shot in basketball. But he makes it at such a high clip. Now we haven't seen Harden in the playoffs, so that's why it's really tough for me to cut Dame because I know Dame shows up in the playoffs, and he has shown up in a big way. So I'm tough. That's tough. But I want to be fair, guys. I want to be fair.
Yeah.
Justin, who's your 3?
For me, I'd start Harden because I think he is the most talented out of the 3. I think when you look at him, he can kind of do a little bit of everything. In my opinion, he's my favorite out of the 3. I like him. He hasn't showed up in the playoffs like you said, but I think this season he's about to go off. I think they could make a deep run this year. So I really like him and the Rockets. And then I would have to cut Luka because he's too young in my opinion. He's not there yet.
Wow.
I think he's a little overrated, honestly. He's very good. But I think people are hyping him up a little too much right now. I think he's actually been shooting not well this season. He started off great last year and at the beginning of this year, but his 3-point shot's fallen off. He's been a little inefficient from shooting, especially the 3-pointer. So I'd have to cut him, and then we've seen what Dame's done, so I'd bench Dame. I mean, All three of them are great players, though, so I don't think you can really go wrong with any answer here.
Wow, that's a heavy statement. That Luka's overrated.
He's not a Luka fan.
I don't think
man.
he's. I don't think he's
He's
over.
not a Luka fan.
I don't think he's bad. Like, I really like his game, but I don't think he's there yet. I think he's on a level below them just because we haven't seen him have the success in the playoffs. And I mean, when Luka was out, we saw the Mavericks were still a 500 team when he didn't play. I mean, they went into Milwaukee and beat the Bucks without him. So I mean, I don't know how much he has a really good system around him, so I really like that. But we haven't seen him in the playoffs yet. I know he struggled a little bit against the top 10 teams this year too. So I want to see him in the playoffs first before I'd put him above Dame and Harden.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Me personally, I'm starting Dame, benching Luka and cutting Harden for the reasons that I explained about how I feel about James Harden.
You're not a big Harden fan.
I'm not sold on Harden. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't won at a high level with that type of play. So at the end of the day, those results weren't there. Like if we said we don't like Steph Curry because he should they take too many threes and they don't play enough defense, they win a championship. So you got to take your hat off to what Golden State did. And it was a different type of basketball than we were ever used to seeing. So you look at James Harden, you say you haven't won anything. It's hard for me to really credit what you've done. And now he's on a team where, you know, everything is set up for him. You can't double team because everybody on the team shoots threes and they're small and they run. So, you know, the stage is set for James Harden to either sink or swim. There's two options there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been sinking recently. Every time he's in the playoffs, he's been sinking.
I think it's good change this year, though. Wait till he gets to Orlando.
No, I mean, like, you know, you put one stat patter on the team and then you add another one in Russell Westbrook. So they're going to be fighting for the ball in the playoffs.
Yeah, but they struggled a bit in the beginning, but I mean, they've come together pretty nicely. I've liked the way normally when you get two ball dominant guys, they can kind of struggle, but the way they're so well connected off the court, I think that's really helped them. Why it's the reason they do have some success here. It's because they have good chemistry.
I think what saves Houston too is that they really want to push the ball and get so many shots that even for guys that are both incredibly ball dominant, they both are going to want help because they want to play fast. Now, Chris Paul would kind of slow it up and want to control the game, but like they kind of have a weird system where if the ball comes off the rim, Russ can just go and get a bucket. But if they get into the half court, Russ is like, here, give it to James and lets James work. So I'm intrigued. When it's working, it's some of the funnest basketball we've seen. But when it's not working, it gets ugly when they don't hit threes. I think they lost to like Minnesota, like, you know, kind of before COVID went out. It was an ugly loss.
Mm-hmm. They lost to the Knicks too there because once they traded Clint Capella, they were very inconsistent. They'd either go out and hit all their threes and win, or they'd get blown out because they weren't making their threes. So I'm curious to see. They're one of those teams that like I think could either make a really deep run or lose in the first round just because we don't really know what we're going to see from them.
Well, that's the big problem is that, you know, they don't have a center. Like that's the one thing people are, you know, overshadowing. They don't have a center. They have PJ Tucker playing their center, who's obviously very undersized.
6'9", I think he is.
6'8", 6'9", something like that. So, yeah, and that's going to struggle when he has to play against, you know, Nikola Jokic and, you know, other centers like that. So it'll be. I mean, I'm intrigued.
But I mean, they did have success because, like, you played against the Lakers in LA, and they were able to win without Capella there. So they were going up against Anthony Davis, and they were still able to win a game. So they can clearly have success. It's a matter of which team will show up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued to see it. I'm ready to see it. I mean, I think that's maybe to be the worst. I mean, other than obviously the pandemic, but that's the worst thing about COVID, like as a fan, because there are so many like, all right, let's see if it works. Like, let's see if you're ready. Let's see if it works, you know, going on. So, I mean, the storylines are there, man. Like, I'm salivating.
Yeah. And there's just so many like what ifs, like what if this happened, you know, what if, you know, what will happen, and we'll find out in 2 months. 2 months. That's all we have to do. We just got to wait 2 months, and then we'll have like 5 to 6 games a day.
Be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome,
Legendary.
right?
Legendary.
I've been like dreaming about that, like watching 5 or 6 games a day. It's gonna be awesome.
Definitely.
So our next topic, we did want to get into our hometown Sixers. Ryan, if you didn't know, Justin and I are from Philadelphia, so diehard Sixers fans. Wanted to talk about this Ben and Joel situation. There's been a lot, kind of some controversy, I guess, about who's more valuable to the team. Is it Ben Simmons or Joel? So I'm curious, who is more valuable to the Sixers in your opinion, Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid?
If I'm comparing the two, Joel Embiid is the best center in basketball when he's not out of shape and he's not injured and he's ready to play. So you have to look at Joel Embiid and say that he's the best. So he's more important to the team. There's no question there. Ben Simmons is a budding star in the league, but it's tough because if he doesn't have an open floor, you're not going to get the most out of him. And you're not going to have an open floor with his running mate Joel Embiid down there because Joel Embiid wants to post up. And when those two are in the game together, they get in each other's way for the time being. So that's what's really tough. And you look at Ben Simmons, unlike Lonzo Ball. So Lonzo Ball is not known as a great shooter and in fact struggled, but Lonzo Ball is a guy that if you double off of him or you leave him wide open, he's either going to, make an assist or play for someone else, or he's going to hit enough shots he'll beat you. And Ben Simmons, you don't even have to guard him because he's just going to keep trying to come to the rim. He doesn't care.
Mm-hmm. And you see that too. Like you see a lot of defenders back up. I watch a lot of the Sixers because I'm a fan. So, they back up a lot. They back off of the perimeter and just give him the wide open space.
Yeah, and when Ben Simmons got into the playoffs, he's really struggled. Everybody was so appalled when I said, "Man, Ben Simmons can't shoot. He's going to struggle in the playoffs. He can't shoot. He's a heck of a player, but you have teams that are going to be able to match what they do." And he struggled mightily, and especially in fourth quarters, just because the lack of shooting was there.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think we saw what happened last year. I mean, Joel Embiid played that game 7. He sat out, I think it was 2 minutes in that game, and the Sixers went, I think they were -10 in those 2 minutes, and that's what really cost them the game there because you didn't have a backup center. And I mean, now they have Al Horford, but he's kind of struggled this year. I think Joel Embiid is definitely the better player, and I think that's what makes him more valuable to the Sixers.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the Sixers, though, who do you think, they've struggled obviously this year. What do you think is the issue? Do you think it's more coaching with Brett Brown, or do you think it's more like the whole structure of this roster? Because they certainly don't have a lot of shooting.
When your two best players don't fit, you're going to struggle. At the end of the day, you can't really play a two-man game with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And neither of those guys are prepared to really just take over a team. So when you don't have a guy who can take over a game by himself and you need to play within a team environment, and we're talking playoff basketball, they're great. It's fine for the regular season. You struggle. I think Brett Brown is a good coach, but that locker room's being lost. They're too young. They're not experienced enough. The thing about Al Horford, Al can only do so much because he almost gets in the way now. He's an excellent spacer. He's a veteran's veteran in the NBA, but there's too much youth. There's no one really to keep Embiid in line and those guys committed. And I just believe that their woes from a strategic standpoint are charting to shine off the court because the spacing isn't there and the maturity isn't there. You don't have a guy like Jimmy Butler that you can ultimately just throw the basketball to and he can go and make a play. Jimmy Butler's a good A-, B+ NBA player in the sense that he can go out and win a basketball game or a series for you. He's right under that tier of, the LeBrons and the Kyries and those guys. So, Jimmy Butler's a different type of player, and you don't have him, and your young guys weren't ready to step in and take the brunt of that role that he played for Philly last year.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think I like Brett Brown as a coach. I think he's not the greatest coach, but I think he's good enough. And I think, they went to Game 7 last year against who ended up being the world champions. So, I think the talent's there. I think what they're missing the most is shooting because I don't think Elton Brand set this team up to fail because I think by signing out Horford, it was good. They got the backup center for when Joel Embiid goes down, but they didn't address the shooting that they need. They could have signed just more of a average center that wouldn't have cost them so much money, and they should have went out and signed a shooter.
Yeah, getting Al Horford, it wasn't the greatest pickup, but there's only so many times you can put lipstick on a pig and just say, we're staying with Embiid and Ben Simmons, but they're so young. It's the worst limit in the world, and you gotta, when you trade away a young star like that, you got to be on accord with the general manager, the president, the coach, possibly the assistant general GM. All those guys have to be on the same page, and that's a marriage that who wants to go in and break up a happy home, but ultimately you look at it and it's not working. So in Philadelphia, I know it's tough for you guys as fans to say, man, look how talented my team is, but yet I don't feel like we're going to contend for a championship, and we're not even the same team that we were the last 2 years. How do we get worse? And we have these two stars in their primes.
You don't know the half of it, how frustrating it is.
Yeah, it's so frustrating to watch.
Because they're talented. They're good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people had them, coming out of the East. So I don't know. And going back to the Al Horford situation, I think one of the big things with the signing of Al Horford was to get him out of Boston. So because if you remember the series against Boston, Al Horford was shining, and he was really dominating against the Sixers. So I think getting him out of he shut down Joel too, and so yeah, getting him out of Boston and having him here kind of made Boston a little weaker because their front court got a little weaker as well.
Yeah, they just missed on bringing JJ Redick back, or bringing just another guy who can go and get his own shot. And that's where they really, really ultimately struggled. And that's where they're hurting. There was no, Tobias Harris is excellent. We hadn't even talked about him, but he's an off-ball player. But there's nothing on that roster that replaces or even is close to Jimmy Butler.
Definitely.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot again. You did play for Boston, and you did play in the playoffs against the Sixers. On a scale of 1 to 10, how ruthless were we against your team that year?
That year, man, we got a run for our money all the way to a Game 7. I joked one time and said we started the process because they went into a rebuild that lasts for some years after that. And you think about Philly, that core with Thaddeus Young, Iguodala, Lou Williams, they were all excellent role players on that team. Elton Brand was actually on that team playing good back. They were all excellent role players, and they didn't have any stars on the team. All those guys are part of championship teams, but there wasn't a guy. And when we beat Philly, they weren't the same sense. But that team was incredibly good. Young, Drew Holiday. Yeah, that was a tough team.
Yep.
There wasn't one star to fit on that team. But you think about how good that roster was. And yeah, we beat them. I mean, they pushed us to the limit. I mean, we were scared. Honestly, if Drew Holiday puts together one more big game where he was aggressive and took over, we would have had trouble. And in his big games, he's so tough because he'll get your starting guard in foul trouble because he's so physical. And if Rondo picks up one more foul, that series might have looked different. We may have been going home.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday. That series, it was insane.
Oh yeah,
very fun to watch.
Game 7, and we needed our home crowd. We needed like everything just to go right.
But how were like the Philly fans? How were they? Did you get intimidated by us at all? Because
man, I'm used to Philly, but like they're ruthless. They're ruthless, like it's a dog fight. Like I know, like when you hear the Philly fans, like they're gonna scream at you, yell at you, like. They're they're honestly ruthless. But at the same time, I know if we're up 15 to 20 points, like they'll start to turn on their own team. So, I mean, that's the best feeling when you're playing against Philly. You're blasting them, and they start booing their own guys. So you're kind of like, cool. I got to play against us and the fans. They turned on you guys. But, those fans are ruthless, man. They'll say, like, any and everything. You just come in honestly prepared for war on another team. And I remember, like, we went to play you guys. It was like maybe game 3 or 4. and AI comes out and he hits the bell and they're celebrating, and I'm like, yo, like stinking Allen Iverson runs out the back and starts celebrating. Like I was like, I know we're losing this game. This is ugly. Streamers are going everywhere. These girls are doing cheerleaders doing backflips. Like, come on, bro. Like this was wild, man.
Oh, that's funny, man.
So out of all the places you played, where would you rank Philly? Like, would you say it's one of the toughest places to play?
I don't think they've had the team that, like, if Philadelphia had a team like that won a championship or competed in the finals or something, it'd be a different environment in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the one thing that misses. But it is one of the tougher places to play. It's not a sexy city. You're not partying. You're not going around. You're not too excited to go. It's freezing outside, and these guys are just like they're just gully in there and just talking crazy to you on the way out. Even when we would walk out the arena, the fans would like huddle around the bus and like just scream obscenities at you. Like, Hollins, you know, F you, buddy. Like, whoa, like chill, man. Like, they're crazy.
That doesn't, you know, general. That's not everybody. Let's just get that out of the way.
That's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
a
yeah.
few.
No.
We wouldn't do that. We'd never do that.
We personally wouldn't do that. No. They're actually pretty strict at the games with that. They're saying like if you cuss, like they'll actually like call you out, like the security guards.
Really,
Seen it happen, yeah.
We
So-
had the Isaiah Thomas situation this year where the fan called him out, and then he went into the stands, and the fan he went into the stands after the fan, and the fan was just like, "Oh yeah, I just wanted a Frosty," and he was like harassing him or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just had to tighten up because, and this was in the NBA when I was there, but it started to get too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Fans felt like when they bought a front court ticket, they bought a player too. Or like, I can do anything I want with the player. I can poke at you. It was like a monkey at the zoo. Like, you can throw stuff into the cage. You can, like, they just thought they could say and do and poke and prod and do all that. And it's like, whoa, hold on. Like, we're people too.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's a difference between, hey, man, you're good, you're bad. This sucks, is that. And it's like, yo, like, hey, your mom is this. Like, they're just screaming like anything. And it's like, bro, like, you guys are going way too far. That's why certain players, and I've seen them remind the people. And what makes it even more prevalent now, I've had teammates that have gone after fans, you know, in a verbal sense, you know, or like throw shout out a threat. But you know what? Now they got a camera on. So that's bad PR for either way. The fan is talking crazy to the player, and the player says, man, I'm going to come and, you know, I'm going to punch you or something, give you a knuckle sandwich. And that's bad on both ways.
Yeah, well, the thing is, a lot of times, like, when the fans egg the player on, and then the player responds, the fan will actually like try to like play the victim, like they'll try to play the victim card. Exactly. But it's like, bro, you started it. You know what I mean? And like, you know, you got to be respectful. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's different. It's different.
Yeah. Well,
so right now, who is your pick to win the NBA Finals? Who's your right now? Who are you most confident in winning the Finals?
I don't even know I could throw out most confident, but I would say that the edge is swayed with COVID-19 to the Lakers. I was a big fan of the Clippers being favorites. The Clippers being favorites throughout. But ultimately, when I went out and saw the way LeBron James was playing of late, in the fact that I think he understands the severity of what's going on with COVID-19, I think LeBron went out and he's been training and he's been working and he's just obsessive about his body. So I think with COVID-19, he's going to take this opportunity and he's going out to, you know, to try to compete and win a championship. So I think LeBron is definitely favored because of that right now.
Yeah, but for somebody like him that's so used to having, like, he's been in the league, what, 16, 17 years now? For somebody that's he's had such a structured style where he's normally not playing basketball at this time of year, you think that may throw his body off?
Well, yes and no, but I think everybody's thrown off. His biggest competition, Kawhi Leonard, I'm scared of Kawhi Leonard being able to start up and play basketball again. You know, Kawhi was just now getting in a rhythm where he wasn't taking the nights off. He wasn't load managing. He was gearing up for the playoffs, and then you stop it. And you got to think LeBron has access to everything he wants as far as getting in the gym, you know, probably working out. He probably never stopped. And then you go down to experience. And if everybody's kind of off, the guy who's been in 9 NBA finals, I think he knows what the NBA finals look like the back of his hand. So you know, he's going to have a calmness about being there, being in that situation, in that role. And Kawhi Leonard was absolutely excellent last year. I thought he really took the bull by the horns, but you know, that was one championship for Kawhi, who I thought at one point was the best player in the world. Don't get me wrong, but I think we're going to lean back on experience with these guys who've been playing in these big moments. And I just think that Lakers team understands what's going on. And also, you know, LeBron James, his leadership qualities at their level. You know, he's the best leader in basketball right now. He's a true mega star in form. So I think that the Lakers, like, they're old enough to where they understand what's at the table.
I agree, 100%. And you know, I have a nickname for him on the show, LeBron. I call him fine wine. You know, he just gets better with age. And you know, that's the thing. And you know, as he gets older, he just becomes a better leader, and he guides. You know, the Lakers are a relatively young team. You know, so he definitely takes that leadership role as he should. And you know, I think he's going to do some damage in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I just think it's hard not to say LeBron right now, but I think, you know, like I said, the big thing is just COVID-19 in the 3 months off, and you know, Kawhi's leg, it worries me. It does, and they were a team that was already struggling with chemistry as is. But I think, you know, I'm pretty confident. I've heard from some guys. LeBron has been able to, you know, stay in good contact with guys, make sure they had workout plans, and you know, he was doing it himself. So, you know, he helped keep his team motivated during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it may have helped, though, a team like the Clippers, who a lot of them have been hurt throughout the years, so they haven't gotten to play at full strength. They haven't had their full starting five playing. So do you think kind of this reset will give them time, and this 8 games will give them time to more gel as a team and get that starting five together? Do you think that may help them at all?
It's actually absolutely going to help their health. But, you know, Kawhi's injury is odd in the sense that, you know, it's his quad firing, which means that you want to build him up to a place where he can play at a high level, but you're really scared of overloading Kawhi Leonard. So when he gets out to play and that quad locks up or doesn't, you know, act the right way because he hadn't been able to simulate an actual real game without playing in a game, that makes me very nervous. That makes me scared. Now, if Kawhi just had, you know, a pulled hamstring or a bruise on his knee or something like that, all the time would be excellent. But the manner in which he's hurt with that quad and how it fires and it doesn't fire, that scares me. That scares me more so than anybody else. But yeah, you know, Patrick Beverley could use a rest. Paul George definitely could use a rest. Those guys should be coming in at 100%. But ultimately, that's a team that's been lacking a lot of chemistry. And I got to give LeBron the hats off, you know, from day one, or even in the summertime when he had those guys go out to Las Vegas and had a mini training camp. They've been working on developing chemistry.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that.
Do you have a dark horse team that you think could make a deep run here? That's not like not a Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, but you think there's another team out there that could make a run to the finals this year?
Yeah, man. I think the Boston Celtics. I think they're deep. They have scoring on the perimeter. Their biggest problem is going to be rim protection. They're going to have to see Giannis Antetokounmpo at some given time. In the Eastern Conference, I like what they do. In the West, we talked about it. Dave, I know you may not be agreeing with me, but I like the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
I think that they're a team that can get up and down. I heard James Harden has lost 20 pounds and, you know, hit Russell Westbrook. I talked to Russ personally. He's been working out and running and doing things. So they sound like a team that really, really took advantage of the hiatus. And if they come out and they've been in the gym and working and they're running and in shape and everybody's been kind of sitting on their butts, that's dangerous for the Western Conference because I know those two have been working out. So I'm intrigued to see how that works out. Another team in the Eastern Conference, I'm not going to overlook, you know, I'm not going to overlook these two teams. And they're hard-nosed teams, they're defensive teams, and it's going to come down to them manufacturing enough points. The Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors. Toronto's got the experience. The only thing they're missing is Kawhi Leonard. They've been playing excellent. They've been underrated all season long. So they're a team that could step up and really surprise some people, but they're going to have to be able to score the ball. And I bring up the Heat because Bam Adebayo can guard Giannis Antetokounmpo as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble. And not to mention, when you look at Jimmy Butler, there's a legit closer down there. So I know it's not the most talented roster. I know they've lost a bit. I know you're going to have to put some young guys in some big time positions, but I would look out for the Miami Heat also.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think the Celtics would struggle against the Sixers, though? Because I know the Sixers beat them 3 out of the 4 times they played in the regular season. Do you think now that they lost Al Horford, like that'd be the projected matchup right now, Sixers versus Celtics? That's probably going to change. Well, it could change at least. Do you think they'd struggle in that series because they beat them 3 out of 4 times in the regular season?
We brought this up earlier in the show. The smartest thing that they did is they went and got Al Horford. That was the guy who guarded Joel Embiid. Now there's nobody to guard Embiid. And the one thing that Philadelphia does well is if you can't stop them in the paint, they're going to pound you out, get you in foul trouble. You're going to have a long, long night. So, Philadelphia could be a very dangerous team, but if you have someone who can physically match up with them, they struggle. And that's what we talked about earlier. Boston is a team that really has weaknesses in the paint. But now look at a star like Jason Tatum. That's a just different Jason Tatum that we've seen that has some battles with Kawhi and LeBron and those guys, and is really emerging into, in my mind, easily a top 10 player in the league the way that he's played, if not higher.
Definitely. Yeah, I was gonna say, don't count Philly out. That's I don't think that they should be counted out. That's might be biased, but seriously, I think they
A
can
little
be
biased.
a little biased, but who isn't?
So if you had to make a prediction right now, what is your NBA Finals prediction? Who would win?
I would say the Lakers and the Bucks if I make my predictions, and I would lean towards the Lakers because they have experience, and LeBron just showed that we all knew he could guard Giannis, but he showed us like we know he can guard Giannis right now, and there's no questions there, and that's a tall ask to have. So, LeBron just showed us again what I've been ranting and raving that hasn't gone anywhere, that he's the best player on the planet. Like we were like, well, LeBron's not that good. Look what Kawhi did to him and these guys, and then he stepped up and was like, nah, guys, like I'm still here. You're just never going to see LeBron early in the year. Like, everybody thinks it's like he's done, he's toast, he's finished, and he's not. He knows how to manage his way through the season. Like Kobe Bryant was never going to let you get the best of him. LeBron James doesn't mind it. And then when, everything's on the line, LeBron James is going to show up to the table, so he knows how to manage his way through the year. And I remember, Kobe Bryant later in his career, he would kind of learn this element where, Kobe Bryant would try to facilitate the first 2 quarters. And then, third and fourth quarter, he would go off to score his points. He tried to let the game come to him. That's LeBron all the time. LeBron doesn't have to make a conscious effort to do that. He just knows how to work his way through a season, and even more so basketball games.
Definitely.
Yeah, so you think LeBron will get his 4th ring this year?
There's a strong possibility. Now he's got to get through the Los Angeles Clippers, and that's a big ask to have. But right now, if I had to put my money on somebody, I'd actually put it on the Lakers, man.
I've had my money on the Lakers the whole year. So
do you think there'd be an asterisk next to it though when they win this, if they win this championship?
I don't think so, man. I don't look back to the San Antonio team during the lockout and say that I put an asterisk on their championship. And I think if anything, this is going to be a battle of nutrition and conditioning. Like who wanted a championship so bad that they're working out in their driveway? Like that's going to be a heck of a story to tell one day. Like, man, like I was biking up trails. Like I was shooting jump shots with no basketball in my living room. You know what I'm saying? Like who's going to be able to tell that story? So in some ways, I'm going to admire it more as long as we don't see, a big name star go down and get hurt, like we saw in last year's finals. Because I think last year's finals had the biggest asterisks, no KD, no Clay. And like, that's what, 66 points off the table for the Warriors.
Absolutely.
So that's like Toronto, you have to win at this point. Like you can't lay an egg.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Well,
so here, I got one more question. So for people out there that want to become a basketball player, what advice would you have for them? Because you succeed at the college and NBA level. What advice would you give someone?
First, man, establish what you want to do. Like if you want to play basketball in the NBA, like know that's what it is. And now establish the hard work. That means you're gonna have to get in early. You're gonna have to stay after. You're gonna have to go and do things on your own. If you're a young high school kid, you got to get your homework done early so that you can get on the court. And you've got to be in the gym more than everybody else. So that's how I look at and I weigh out being, an NBA player, that's something that you really, really want to do.
Hmm. Definitely.
One more question, if you don't mind. What advice would you have someone that's trying to get into, the sports media? Because, you're very successful as an analyst for ESPN and for, CBS. What advice would you give somebody who's starting out in the sports media field?
For one, don't take no for an answer. Get your reel together. Be realistic about how good you are. Get your reps. I think you guys are doing an excellent job with the podcast.
Appreciate
And
it.
Thank you.
I would go ahead and I always like to envision myself in these scenarios. So like, let's say Get Up calls you in and said, "Hey man, Greeny's out. I want you to host right now." Could you host Get Up, or would you get up there and not know like what the heck to do, like not have no idea what you're doing? Do you know the role of an analyst? Do you know the role of a play-by-play guy? Do you know if there's an emergency that happens, how to stall in time, how to read off of a prompter? You have to try to put yourself in these tough scenarios so that when you do get your shot, you're absolutely ready, because it may only be one shot. And it could be doing some local TV. It could be doing editing a little project by yourself and chopping it up. And like I said, like for me, I would always watch who's the best. So I watch a Stephen A. Smith, a Skip Bayless, a Max Kellerman, a Marcellus Wiley, those guys, a Rob Parker. I watch those guys and say, man, what are they doing? What makes them good? Instead of getting caught in what they said, how did they say it? Why did they say it? Why is it so captivating? How did they grip my attention with what they said? So for me, you have to look at those people and emulate them and see what goes into the art and the craft of broadcasting. Forget what they're saying. Think about how they're saying. And obviously you got to, eat, sleep, and breathe your homework too. And you guys are doing an excellent job of that. I like how you refer back to a game that you watched and things that you saw. And I mean, shoot, you got to be the guy watching, three or four TVs a day, every single day, soaking in the material.
Yep. Definitely.
Definitely appreciate the love, man. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
Thank you, man. All right, yeah, we covered a lot. We covered a lot of good stuff. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, that's gonna wrap up this episode. Ryan, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, no problem, guys, man. And like I said, man, I was willing to do this because you guys, took a chance on me and want to support me in my career. So I love what you guys did for me, and I have no problem, giving back, man. And keep up the good work, guys. Keep striving, keep looking to be better.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ryan has his own show, Opinionated 7-Footers. We'll put the link in the description for that. We'll put a link in the description for his social media. It's gonna wrap up the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good one.
Thank you.
Peace.